discussions on webinars to a greater height, because he is already on the WhatsApp group, and what he has created in India has been the limelight and has been awarded in the API functions and the Diabetes Association as well. The talk and the current guidelines of the management of dyslipidemia, as we all know, that the 10 years ASCVD trials and protections are very, very important. There has been some changes in the achieving the goals of the level of the LDL-C. And I think my friend Dr. N.K. Singh will be talking and discussing on these issues, that when diabetics, type 2 diabetes mellitus with very chances of getting into trouble, and the phenomena of the lowering down the statins comes as a helping hand to the reduction of the various morbid and mortal conditions. He will be delving into the details of the trials, and currently we will be revolving around the guidelines which is provided by the ESC and ES. With the LDL-C, when to achieve less than 70, when to achieve less than 55, and when it should be at least less than 50% of the baseline level of the LDL-C. Over to Dr. N.K. Singh, please.
Good morning to you all, chairpersons, my friend Dr. Hemshankar ji, Mr. Bharat Arora ji, and really I am really thankful to Ashutosh Mishra ji for giving this unique opportunity to talk on a very important topic of ESC/ES 2019 guidelines for the management of dyslipidemia. So in next 25 minutes, let me proceed and talk about this. Well, few things are very, very important. If you remember, the previous European Society of Cardiology and European Atherosclerotic Society lipid guidelines, they were published in August 2016. Later on, the emergence of a substantial body of evidence over the past few years that required something new, and say the up-to-date guidelines appeared. If you say that the whole talk is what about, you can just read these lines. This is from the, I think, the most important persons, and from the publication itself, that the new evidence has confirmed that the key initiating event in atherogenesis is retention of LDL and other cholesterol rich, that is a very big importance they have given to ApoB, that is the apoprotein B, that containing lipoproteins within the arterial wall. So with that, the truth is undisputed today in 2021 that the importance of atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease prevention remains undisputed and should be delivered at the general population level by promoting healthy lifestyle behavior, and at the individual level by tackling unhealthy lifestyles and by reducing increased risk of causal CV risk factors such as LDL cholesterol or blood pressure levels. There's huge controversy about the lowering of cholesterol in past few years we have seen. But believe me that this truth which I am showing you is undisputed at present. If you see in the 2019, these guidelines thought about the occurrence of the atherosclerosis. They have lots of things to tell about genetics, factors of environment, exercise, risk, anti-inflammatory things, body weight, blood pressure, cigarette smoking, cholesterol, and so many trials. You can see here like the DREAM trial about the sleep, diet, digital health, and diabetes. But even in 2021, these things hold true. So, मूल मंत्र अगर बोला जाए, what is the updated ESC update dyslipidemia मूल मंत्र, that is lower LDL targets and broaden the risk categories. This iteration represents a merging of European and US ideas, but the inclusion of LPA screening remains today also controversial. So what was the background behind this giving the new evidence? I think the three things are very, very important. One thing is the LDLC and the ApoB containing LP are key elements in the heterogenesis, and this has been now proved by Mendelian randomization studies. They have confirmed that the LDLC is causally related to the atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. And remember, whatever the hope was with the raising the HDLC with available therapies, today it has been shown that the raising LDLC do not reduce the atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. This is a major thing to understand. And then the addition of this again, the old molecule, but now there has been survival of this molecule, the ezetimibe, you know, on the PCSK9 monoclonal antibody, they provide that further benefit, further reduction in the LDLC, further reduction in this atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. And the concept came that there is no J-curve effect with the LDLC lowering. The lower the LDLC levels, the better. So this was the major things, and these are the most important message which I want to give you. The risk of experiencing an acute atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease event rises rapidly as more ApoB containing lipoproteins become retained and the atherosclerotic plaque burden increases. So this major advancement came with these things. Some points about the LDLC and the risk of atherosclerosis. You know, I told you about the compelling evidence. Long-term exposure to lower LDLC levels is associated with lower risk of CV events. And these data today provide a causal and cumulative effect on the risk of atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. Both the absolute magnitude and total duration of exposure to LDLC is very, very important. In the same way, you can see here that the traditional lipid profile has served as a mainstay of atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease risk assessment for decades. This tool became even more important as targeted therapies such as statins, and more recently, as I told you, the PCSK9 inhibitors became available. Even with this advantage in lipid management and more broadly in targeting traditional cardiovascular risk factors, ongoing risk in many patients points to need to investigate other contributors as possible therapeutic targets. Then the lipoprotein A is a promising biomarker to help refine current strategy of this risk assessment, and it is estimated to be elevated in approximately 20% of the world population. So this is something new came. And research on LPA, that is the lipoprotein A, suggests it has the added value in preventive medicine, and it is time for the cardiologist and cardiovascular team members to consider using it routinely in the practice, which you are not doing. And regarding so many controversies about the triglyceride, the elevated plasma TG levels are associated with an increasing level of atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. This is quite evident from these guidelines. But this association becomes null after adjusting for the non-HDLC and estimate of the total concentration of all ApoB containing lipoproteins. So lowering triglyceride with the fibrates reduces the risk of CV events by the same amount as LDLC lowering therapies when measured per unit change of non-HDLC, suggesting that the effect of plasma triglyceride on the atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease is mediated by changes in the concentration of TG-rich lipoproteins as estimated by non-HDLC. These lines are from the same guidelines. And I told about the Mendelian randomization studies, and said they also pointing towards this. So together these studies strongly suggest that there is a causal effect of the TG-rich lipoproteins and their remnants on the risk of ASCVD is determined by the circulating concentration of ApoB containing particles rather than by the TG itself, content itself. So the European recommendations are the first to suggest in these guidelines that the LDL cholesterol target of less than 55 milligram per DL in addition to at least 50% lowering beyond baseline for both primary prevention, that is class 1 level of evidence C, and secondary prevention, class 1 level of evidence A, patients at very high risk. So for those at high risk, the target is 70 milligram per DL plus 50% lowering, remember. And patients at moderate risk should be aim to be below 100 milligram per DL. And recommendations for patients at low risk, if patient is low risk, then it is 116 milligram per DL, and that did not change in these guidelines too. But I told you that there is no longer an LDLC hypothesis, but established facts that increased LDLC values are causally related to atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. So lowering LDL particles and other ApoB containing lipoproteins as much as possible reduces CV events. So clinical trials have clearly indicated today that lower it is, the better. So this is from a very important person that who told that we do not need LDL in the arteries. There is now overwhelming evidence from experimental, epidemiological, and genetic studies and randomized clinical trials that higher LDL cholesterol is a potent cause of heart attack and stroke. So we do not have a J curve today, I told you, and he told that we do not need LDL in the arteries. So I told you about what are the foundations of the new guidelines. And this is also very important to understand what are the classes of recommendations they use with these all class 1, 2, 3, I think you know it. And the most important thing, they started by the risk estimation. And they used in these guidelines this score that was cardiovascular risk chart, 10-year risk of fatal CVD. I will not go in detail of how to calculate these scores, but this is very important to understand that the risk factor screening is very, very important according to these guidelines. That the lipid profile should be considered in men more than 40 years old and women more than 50 years of age or postmenopausal, and a risk estimation system such as a score can assist. Although there are so many today, the risk estimation scores online, but this is what they use in these guidelines. So this is to estimate a person 10-year risk of CVD there. That you can use only by, you can see here, they have used, what is they have used? The cholesterol level, the smoker, non-smoker, men you can see, and here the blood pressure, and here the total cholesterol. And by these things, online you can assess the scores. So recommendations for cardiovascular disease estimation is in 3 stages. So what you do, the clinical evaluation, it is recommended that high and very high risk individuals are identified on the basis of documented CVD, diabetes, moderate to severe renal disease, very high level of individual risk factors, familiar hypercholesteremia and high score is. So it is recommended that patients are considered as a priority of evidence and management of risk factors. So they have a score 10-year risk estimate, and they also assessment of risk modified higher, which you can see online. But as I told you, what are the recommendations from this new wave? So what are the new things in these guidelines? The coronary artery calcium screening is now endorsed by this European EVD guidelines. Class 2A level of evidence is B. So if a patient is at low risk, no, because there is no need to reclassify. If you have a high risk, but moderate risk, you should perform a calcium score to reclassify. And this is with the exception of the smokers and the patients already on statins, because we have learned that if you are on statins for prevention, the calcium score means nothing. Then there was a controversy remains with the lipoprotein 8 even today, but the guidelines support a one-time lipoprotein A screening for all adults over age of 40 years to identify people who have inherited an extremely elevated level of LPA more than 180 milligram per DL, and therefore have a very high lifetime risk of atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease that is approximately equivalent to the risk associated with heterozygous familial hypercholesterolemia. So this is a very, very important thing from these guidelines. They also, I told you that tell new things about the omega-3 fatty acids, calcium screening, and ezetimibe. So you are well aware about all these things, but remember this addition of omega, what is the controversy with the omega-3 fatty acids? You can see here that use of this icosapentalethyl is a prescription omega-3 fatty acid formulation twice daily in patients with high triglycerides on top of statins, based on finding from the reduced IT trial. But it is not the fish oil over the counter, remember. So when to recommendation for the lipid analysis for cardiovascular disease risk prevention, there are so many things to tell. We don't have time to read all, but I think this slide is very important. Saying today that what I will say to you that the ApoB analysis is recommended for risk assessment when, particularly in patients with high TG levels, if patient is diabetic, obesity, metabolic syndrome, or very low LDL levels, it can be used as an alternative to LDL-C if available, as the primary measurement for screening, diagnosis, and management, and may be preferred over the non-HDL-C in people with high TG levels, diabetes, obesity, or very low LDL-C level. You can see the class 1 indication is here. So this point from this slide. Something about the statins and increased risk of new onset diabetes. This is also endorsed by these guidelines. So you can see here, there is some absolute risk reduction in the risk of CVD in high risk patients, clearly overweight. So I think there is some issues with this, that there could be, you can see here the number needed to cause one case of diabetes has been estimated as 255 over 4 years on the statin treatment. So this is, you should be remember. Then you should go for the CK test in all cases or ALT case. They have also given very important guidelines. I will not say all, you are aware about that, this ALT is recommended before the start of statin therapy, and the routine control of ALT during treatments is not recommended, but should be performed if indicated. But regarding the creatine kinase, this must be assessed immediately when only in patients with present with the muscle pain and weakness, and especially in the elderly, and the treatment stopped if the CK rises to more than 10 times of the upper lower limit. So this is quite important. So they have given a very beautiful table how often should CK be measured and what to do. In the same way, about so many controversy about the 5 rates. What is the conclusion from this guidelines? That the results from the other meta-analysis suggest reduced major CVD events in the patients with high TG and low HDL-C in 5 rate treated patients, but no decrease in severity or total mortality. Thus, the overall efficacy of 5 rates on CVD outcome is much less robust than that of a statin, though it is quite clear again. This say also about the testing lipids, how often should lipids be tested, 1 week, 2 weeks, or 12 weeks. So this is also important thing, but to know is alert is due to the increased frequency of diabetes during a statin treatment. Regular checks of HbA1c should be considered in patients at high risk of developing diabetes and under high dose statin treatment. Remember, and groups to be considered for glucose control are the elderly or those with metabolic syndrome, obesity, or signs of insulin resistance. Now we'll start this in 2 minutes that what they are saying, that how to intensify the lipid lowering treatment. Remember, if there is moderate intensity in statin, there will be average LDL-C reduction of 30%. High intensity statin, if you use, it is 50%. And if you use a high intensity statin plus ezetimibe, it is 65%. If you are using the PCSK inhibitors, it is 60%. If you just add the moderate intensity statin, you can do up to 75%. And if you use both 3 combination, PCSK9 inhibitors plus high intensity statin plus ezetimibe, you can achieve lowering of LDL-C something around tune of 85%. This is quite mind-boggling. Then they also give how to categorize very high risk patients. I have no time. Moderate risk patients and low risk patients. You can see online all these things. It is quite freely available. then you can have to do a calculated score. Okay, what is the lifetime risk? And accordingly, you should go for the treatment modalities. So as you see here, the very high risk calculated score more than 10% for 10-year risk of fatal CVD. If it is high risk only, it is the calculated score is more than 5% and less than 10% for 10-year risk of fatal CVD. If there will be moderate risk, if calculated score is more than 1% and less than 5% for 10 years risk of fatal CVD, and there will be low risk if your score comes less than 1%. So this is very important from these guidelines. And there are so many things which factors which modify your the score is, like you can see here, these things. So when you calculate your this score risk estimation, you should also remember these things. I'm not getting details, but they have a beautiful chart, guidelines for the management of dyslipidemia, how to manage from this only one. But the things are, they have given the low density recommendations in secondary prevention, patients have very high risk, an LDL-C reduction of at least 50% from the baseline, and the LDL-C goal of less than 55, remember less than 55 are recommended for secondary prevention. Even for the primary prevention, for individuals at very high risk, but without the effect, an LDL-C reduction of at least 50 from the baseline, an LDL-C goal of less than 55 is recommended. So these are the guidelines available. In the same way, they have given the recommendation for the treatment goals for the low density cholesterol. There are many things to understand here. But this summarizes everything here, that treatment goals for low density lipoprotein, how they have given with their score system, and you must remember these things. They have also in the older patients, they have given your guidelines. The treatment with a statins is recommended for primary prevention according to the levels of risk. In older people aged 75 may be considered, remember, may be considered if at high risk or above. But treatment of dyslipidemia in diabetes in patients with type 2 diabetes at very high risk, an LDL-C reduction of more than 50% from the baseline, and LDL-C goals also it is same in the older patients. You can see this again says the same thing. So I'm not going detail because they have given also a chart for how to proceed for the hypertriglyceridemia. It is available, and they have beautiful chart also table for recommendations for the treatment of dyslipidemia in diabetes. So this is also available there. And what to do with the management of dyslipidemia for pregnant women and diabetes. It is not to be used, as you know from these charts. And they have recommendations for lipid lowering therapy in very high risk patients with acute coronary syndrome. You can see here, they have the recommendations for lipid lowering therapy for the prevention of atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease events in patients with prior ischemic event, what to do. And they also how to treat the chronic heart failure and valvular heart disease. And even for the CKD patients, they have something. You can see here in the CKD patient, what to do. There is no clear evidence that statins have a clinically significant beneficial or adverse effect on renal function. But remember, an increased risk of frequency of proteinuria has been reported for all statins, but has been analyzed in more detail for rosuvastatin, that is well known. Although statin-based therapy is clearly effective in mild to moderate CKD, a major controversy that remained after the publications of 4D, Aurora, and the SHARP studies was whether the statin therapy is effective in more advanced CKD, particularly dialysis patients. So these things they have also discussed. Even after the solid organ transplant patients, what to do, they have given guidelines. And there is a beautiful chart to understand what was difference from the 2016 and 2019. I don't have time now to tell you, but in next 2 to 3 minutes, I will conclude that still there are many gaps in the evidence. And you must go for all, remember, reading all these gaps, then you will understand what is happening. And they have given what to do and what not to do messages from the guidelines. I have told you again, and the same things they have repeated in this table. So these are the things you want to do here. They have also a target and goals for cardiac disease prevention that is important. How to prevent. There are lots of controversy when you think about smoking, diet, physical activity, body weight, non-HDL-C, EPO, triglycerides, everything has been quite clear in these guidelines. And even the food choices to lower LDL cholesterol and improve the overall lipoprotein size is very beautifully given. So what was the difference between the ACC and AHA guidelines? That is an important question. The 2019 ECS and the ACC AHA guidelines both seek to maximize the use of statin therapy and match intensity of treatment to risk level. And this comes as no surprise as the cholesterol treatment trialist collaboration analysis show that each in the same direction. So things are from the both guidelines, the LDL-C remains optimal despite the maximum tolerated statin and lifestyle. And then both guidelines agree on the concept that non-statin therapy can be considered in very high risk adults. And central to each set of guidelines in addressing the primary prevention population is the estimation of cardiovascular risk through accepted risk scoring system. So these are from the board guidelines. All the Europeans use different scoring, and the US they have a different guidelines. So European targets or goals, I'm not going details of all these things. But lastly, in 2 minutes, 1 minute, what is the importance of these guidelines Dr. Ashutosh Mishra told me to talk about? Why you are not following about the Lipid Association of India guidelines? Because even if you see only one slide, I think these are something, do you think that is just a copy from these guidelines? The conclusion of 2020 Lipid Association of India guidelines says that more aggressive LDL-C goals are needed for prevention of atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease in India, as described in this expert consensus statement. Use of statins and ezetimibe needs to increase in India in combination with improved control of other atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease factors, and pro-protein convertage subtilisin caxin type 9 inhibitors can improve LDL-C goal management. So this again, the Lipid Association of India also recommends an LDL-C goal of 50 milligram per DL in all patients in secondary prevention or very high risk primary prevention, but proposes an optional goal 30 milligram per DL, you can see here, in extremely risk patients. So this is something we also remember that this is our own guidelines from the Lipid Association of India. It remains unknown whether treating patient in primary prevention noted as very high risk in the ECSC guidelines, diabetes and the organ change damage, severe CKD, calculated score more than 10%, will derive sufficient incremental benefits from such aggressive LDL-C lowering, including addition of the ezetimibe and possibly PCSK inhibitors. So this is what is the, they have a very beautiful from the Lipid Association of India also. This is not a topic, but they have updated risk stratification accordingly. And you can see they have given you a algorithm for treatment to achieve LDL-C goals, how to proceed. So we should also be remember that these guidelines which appeared in JAPI are very, very important, how we should proceed. And they have given a beautiful table, what are the indication of fasting lipid profile, and when you should do also the non-fasting. Non-fasting also, you can see here where you know everything. They have given a beautiful chart out dealing with triglycerides. So concluding my talk, improve IT, 4-year and ODC outcomes from the backbone, form the backbone of recent evidence for intensifying LDL-C lowering therapy beyond statins. So they enrolled patients with clinical atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease and prior events, not as asymptomatic moderate atherosclerosis documented on angiographies. Thus, the conclusions of these trials cannot necessarily be extended to those patients population with incidentally discovered atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease on imaging. So even if you combine the ACC AHA guidelines, they adhere closely to the trial evidence, whereas ECS guidelines goes well beyond it. That is important. And I told you, okay, what are those well beyond updates, the new recommendations of cardiovascular imaging, lipid analysis, drug treatment, and treatment of patients with heterogeneous family FH, and treatment of dyslipidemia in older age, and treatment of dyslipidemia in diabetes. Everything goes beyond. So lastly, I will tell that there are major conceptual similarities between the ACC and AHA and the ESC guidelines, and even you can say the Lipid Association of India guidelines, but also major differences in how these concepts are operationalized. Both guidelines are important and valuable resources to clinicians and the patients. We need focused comparison of the two guidelines as to start to a conversation that will hopefully aid in understanding the guidelines better and implementing preventive therapies in practice. It is critical that differences in guidelines do not lead to clinical inertia, but rather curiosity to understand the underlying evidence better. Implementing either guidelines will prevent many cardiovascular events. But for again, I will say you that be vocal for the local and consider also the Lipid Association of India 202 guidelines. Thank you very much for patience hearing. Thank you.
And to